All right, let's get into it. Today, we are diving deep into an ancient saga from the book of Jasher. This is a story about a relentless quest for revenge that stretches across decades, all fueled by a generational grudge and met with, well, some seriously supernatural power. This is the story of a final epic war. But you know what? Let's start with the absolutely unbelievable outcome. How in the world did a tiny force of just 150 men manage to defeat a massive, battle-hardened alliance that numbered in the hundreds of thousands? The answer? Well, it's a clash between sheer human ambition and divine power, a story packed with sorcery, prophecy, and a grudge that just would not die. So, our story kicks off with one man, Zepho, a descendant of Esau. About 72 years after the Israelites move into Egypt, he finds himself a fugitive on the run with his men. But here's the thing, he isn't just running from something, he is running toward one single burning goal, vengeance. Zepho's journey takes him all the way to Africa, right to the court of a guy named King Angeas. And his rise to power is honestly just unbelievably fast. He isn't just given asylum, he's welcomed with great honor and boom, immediately made captain of the king's entire army. He goes from fugitive to general in a flash. His path to power was just getting started. And Zepho does not waste a second. His one and only mission is to get his new king to march on Egypt and absolutely crush the sons of Jacob, the Israelites. This isn't just some political power play. No, this is personal. It's about avenging the ancient feud between his ancestor, Esau, and his brother, Jacob. We're talking about a blood feud that was centuries in the making. But there's a snag. King Angeas is no fool. He's heard the stories, he knows all about the power of the Israelites and what they'd done to his armies before, so he says no, he's not risking it. And just like that, Zepho's first big plan for revenge is shut down by his king's, let's be honest, very rational fear. Zepho, though, he is relentless. Years go by and he just keeps pushing and pushing until Angeas finally caves and agrees to go to war. But before they march, the king decides to consult a different kind of power. Not the power of swords and shields, but of sorcery, through a very gifted young man. So King Angeas turns to divination. He wants a peek into the future, to know how this whole war will play out before he risks a single soldier. And to do this, he summons a 15-year-old kid named Balaam, who just so happens to be an absolute master of witchcraft already. Now, the ritual itself is something else. Balaam crafts these incredibly detailed little wax models of both armies, chariots, horsemen, the whole shebang. He places them in this enchanted water and, using myrtle boughs, starts to conjure an omen. I mean, just imagine the tension in the room as the king and his ambitious captain are watching this whole thing unfold. And the vision, it's absolutely undeniable. There in the water, the wax figures representing Angeas' army start to wobble, falter, and then sink right before the models of Egypt and Israel. The prophecy is terrifyingly clear. You will lose. Angeas is so freaked out, he calls off the entire invasion on the spot. For Zepho, this is it. This is the last straw. He's been thwarted by a fearful king who trusts sinking wax figures more than his own military. So he's done. He abandons his post. If he can't get power through Angeas, he's going to go out and forge it for himself. And this really shows you the difference between them, right? On one side, you've got Angeas, super cautious, relying on omens, and on the other, you've got Zepho, a decisive warrior, totally driven by this singular purpose. He's a man of action, and he bolts from Africa to find a people who are willing to act with him. And he finds them in the land of Chittim. His reputation just explodes with these legendary feats. First, he's hired as a commander. Then, he tracks down this monstrous beast, part man, part animal, to its cave and slays it with his own swords. He becomes so popular they literally name a holiday after him. He even fights off raids from his old boss, Angeas, until finally the people make him their king. He now has his own kingdom and his own army. Decades pass. Zepho reigns for 50 years. And this whole time, he waits. He waits for that generation of Israel's mighty protectors, Joseph and his brothers, to finally pass away. The moment he hears they're all gone, he knows. His time has finally come. This time around, Zepho is leaving absolutely nothing to chance. He sends out messengers and builds this massive alliance. His own people, the children of Chittim, are joined by Hadad, king of Edom, which unites all the descendants of Esau. Then come the children of the east and the children of Ishmael, other tribes with their own long history with the Israelites. This is a huge coalition, all united for one purpose: destroy Egypt and the sons of Jacob. You know, it's hard to even wrap your head around the sheer scale of this army. When all the allied forces gather together at Hebron, their camp is so enormous that it takes 3 full days just to walk from one end to the other. This is the unstoppable force Zepho has been dreaming of leading his entire life. So as this immense army pours into the Valley of Pathros, victory looks like a sure thing. It's inevitable. But Zepho's long-awaited triumph is about to take a shocking turn, one that no army, no general, and certainly no sorcerer could have ever seen coming. The imbalance of the forces here is just staggering. On one side, you've got Zepho's endless horde. On the other, Egypt manages to pull together 300,000 soldiers. But here's the kicker. They don't trust the Israelites. They're afraid they'll switch sides, so they isolate this tiny little group of 150 Israelite men and tell them to stay back. So the Egyptians charge into battle all by themselves, and the result is an absolute catastrophe. Zepho's alliance is just too much for them. The Egyptian lines shatter, and they are completely crushed, fleeing in total terror from the battlefield. The numbers are just brutal. 180,000 Egyptian soldiers are killed in that first assault alone. Their army is completely decimated, and in total desperation, they start crying out for help to the very men they had just cast aside. And this right here, this is the moment everything changes. Hearing the cries for help, the 150 men of Israel put their trust in their God, and they charge. All alone, a tiny force against a victorious, overwhelming enemy. And then the impossible happens. The Israelites tear through the enemy ranks like a divine hurricane, just spreading chaos and fear everywhere. They cut down 4,000 of the alliance's soldiers, and this great terror just falls over Zepho's entire army. But here it is. Here's the most astounding fact of the entire story. In that furious charge that completely routed a massive army, not a single Israelite was lost. 0 casualties. An absolute, divinely powered victory. But the story doesn't quite end there. As they're returning from the battle, the Israelites remember how Egypt betrayed them. They come across fleeing Egyptian soldiers and decide to act with some cold-blooded cunning. They start shouting to each other, get him, he's an enemy," all while knowing perfectly well he was an Egyptian. It was a calculated, brutal payback for being abandoned on the battlefield. And this brings us to our final thought. Zepho's lifelong quest for vengeance ends in total, humiliating defeat. The Israelites, on the other hand, achieve this miraculous victory, clearly powered by their faith. But that victory is sealed with deception and the blood of their own supposed allies. So it really makes you wonder, when a righteous cause is won through cunning and bloodshed, who's the real winner here?